AIM-listed 4D Pharma develops what it calls live biotherapeutics, which it says has the potential to transform the way in which many challenging diseases are treated. One of the most high profile, of course, is Covid-19, which we'll get to discuss in just a minute with the company. But the business has also just updated investors on what it says is a crucial stage of a cancer clinical study underway, with 4 new sites added in the US to accelerate patient recruitment. Duncan Peyton is Chief Executive of 4D Pharma. He joins us now. Duncan, welcome. It's good to talk to you. I know you're around, I think, got 8% of the company, so you have a big interest in the business, which is always nice to know when interviewing chief executives. I want to begin, first of all, with you, if I can, to take a look at pre-COVID, just to get your feeling as to what the business was about before the coronavirus struck. And it's almost, I guess, to some degree, possibly taking your eye off the ball. We'll get onto that, but I wanted to get an idea as to what the company's about.
Okay, Jeremy, thanks for having me on. So the company's about live biotherapeutics. We are about using live bacteria to treat diseases that have significant impact. So we're looking at oncology, we're looking at COVID, obviously, we're looking at asthma. And it's really a novel class of therapeutics that we've been at the forefront of developing. One of the interesting things is, as well as being efficacious, they are safe, and we've got fantastic safety profiles across all our products and in all the work that we've seen. So, really we wanted to try and push that forward and develop, what we call the perfect drug, i.e. that's a drug that is both efficacious and safe. So, that's what we've been doing since 2014. We've made great progress. We've got some great partners in Merck. We've got our own manufacturing facility. And, we're now in the clinic and we're doing some great things, not only in COVID, but also in oncology.
Yeah, let's pick up on the great things you're doing. 4D's cancer trials now underway. That sounds exciting. Just explain where we are along the path, because it is a long path, isn't it, to where you ultimately want to get to?
Yeah, drug development is a particularly precarious pathway. It takes a lot of time and takes a lot of effort. But what we've been able to do is, we've been going for 5 years, and in that short period of time, we've gone from, the concept of, can we use bacteria that we find in the gut to influence the immune system to work in diseases such as oncology, to finding bacteria that have that specific effect, understanding how they work, and then translating that through the development process and into the clinic. So in that 5-year period, we've done an amazing amount of work. But now we're at the stage where we've gone through the first lot of safety of patients on the safety part of the trial. And we know the drug is safe. But we've also seen some fantastic responses, particularly in renal cell carcinoma. We've seen a really interesting signal in one of the patients with non-small cell lung cancer. And what's interesting about these patients is they are incredibly ill. So these are guys that have had multiple rounds of treatment and have very little options left. So, it's a real breakthrough. It's a real step forward. It's a real step forward for science, and it's a real step forward for the patients and the clinicians as well.
Yeah, let's move on, if I can, and talk about COVID. These phase 2 clinical trials now open to enrolment. I said at the top, I put the point possibly that your attention is being diverted away from what you were doing before COVID onto COVID. To what degree have you been able to cope with that challenge? Because you talk about the long drawn-out process you have to face in terms of getting drugs to market, and the long period you've experienced. There's so much pressure on companies like yourselves with the COVID experience at the moment to get something to market as quickly as possible. Are you having to divert a lot of your skill base into this new area?
That's a great question. One of the things that we were working on was asthma, and asthma is really inflammation of the lung. And what we found was when the COVID crisis hit, the first data that came out of Wuhan sort of showed that you were seeing this hyperinflammation in the lung. And once we understood that actually the product that we were developing for asthma potentially had a role to play in the COVID crisis. So we were able to divert the team that was working on the asthma study, because you really can't continue to send patients to clinic who've got respiratory problems when there's a virus outbreak or a pandemic like COVID. So we were able to transfer our skill set into the COVID trial and work on that. And the team did an exceptional job. They worked incredibly hard in conjunction with the regulatory agencies, who have done a fantastic job in terms of being able to process these applications in a contracted period of time. And so now we've got the sites open. We're ready to dose patients, and we'll see what happens as we recruit through that trial and see what happens. But that trial itself is 90 patients, so it's quite small. And if we see a signal in that, then I think it's great. There's great hope for the future.
My understanding this is a treatment to prevent COVID from becoming serious. We're not talking here about something that's going to blast any potential effects on the body. My understanding it is just purely that, though, is it? It just ameliorates the potential effects.
Jeremy, you're right. The big problem with COVID is the infection. The immune system starts to rev up and starts to become uncontrolled, and that's what causes a lot of the problems that we're seeing, particularly in the lungs. So what our drug is able to do is able to just damp that down. And what we're hoping that we can do is we can treat patients early enough where they don't need to progress onto oxygen or respirators. And that'll be a great step forward. I think what's also interesting is the drug's safe as well. So from the initial work we'd done in asthma, we knew the drug was safe. So we've got something that is relatively unique in terms of we can give it to patients knowing that we've got a strong safety profile, and hopefully we'll be able to prevent them from going on to the need for oxygen and respirators and really help them on the road to recovery.
Yeah, thankfully we're seeing less people now acquire the disease. That slowdown in the number of infections, does that cause a problem for you in terms of finding patients that match up to the standard you want them to be at in order to test this drug? Are you finding it difficult to find people to test this out on?
We're still seeing patients coming through, and we'll continue to see that. So although the case numbers have dropped down, we're still seeing hospitalizations. And I think, as we all unfortunately sort of suspect, we're seeing outbreaks already in Leicester, and we're seeing outbreaks in other areas of the world as well. So I think we'll continue to see these peaks and troughs of the disease. I think the thing to say about COVID, it's going to be around for a while.
Yeah, one of the things, of course, is especially for small companies, small market caps, small leverage opportunities, it does cost money to do this. You getting government funding at all in this trial?
We applied for a couple of grants from the government. We'll see how those pan out. But you're correct. Clinical trials are expensive. They can be long. I think the idea with the COVID trial is quite short and should be quite compact. So we should be able to get some results out of a relatively small number of patients, so 90 patients.
Are you expecting to have to raise money at all in order to complete these trials? You don't want to get so far and find out you've not got the funds available to go over the finish line. Do you anticipate the need for more money?
We raised in February, so we've done one fundraising already this year. I think as a biotech business, you're always looking at the marketplace. You're always looking at investors. We're very keen on talking to investors from overseas, from the US and from Asia as well, who've got interests in what we're doing. So we always keep an eye on the marketplace and see what's happening.
Yeah. How big is the market, do you think, for this ultimately? I mean, we're talking about a massive unknown, I appreciate, but do you know any sort of extent and size and the dimensions of the market that you're aiming for?
Are we talking specifically about the COVID market? Because that
the COVID market, yeah.
That's it's a true unknown. We've just gone through a huge pandemic. We suspect there'll be more spikes. So the market size is not only is it big, and how we quantify that is is difficult to say, but it's certainly going to be global. And I think there's going to be a need for treatments to help prevent these people going on respirators and the need for oxygen. So I think the market's significant.
Let me ask you the same question about the other areas you're involved with, the oncology and the asthma areas. What are the potentials there for these drugs? And I suppose with the COVID experience, your asthma drug has made tremendous advances recently as well with the research that's been undertaken. Are you anywhere nearer coming out with something more definite with regard to the asthma treatment? And again, as I said, the size of that market would be interesting to find out as well.
We're talking about billion-dollar marketplaces here. If you think about the asthma market in itself, it really hasn't developed over the last sort of couple of decades. So if you talk to asthma patients, what do they want? They just want to be able to breathe better. And I think, if they can take a drug that is safe and allows them to do that, then I think, the marketplace for that drug is huge. It's in the billions. It's the same for oncology. If you look at the checkpoint marketplace, that's the marketplace that's expected to grow to 25 billion in the next couple of years. The Keytruda sells about $4 billion a quarter. It's one of the biggest selling drugs in the world. And here we are, working alongside Merck with Keytruda and being able to access patients who don't respond. And Keytruda is a fantastic drug, as are all checkpoint inhibitors, but actually they only work in about 30% of patients.
Right. Okay. Of course, the market cap of 4D at the moment is only about 43 million. So are you going to be taken over, or is your eye on the ultimate prize of being a producer and a company that actually supplies drugs into the market? Or do you see ultimately you being taken over by one of these large companies, possibly even one of those partners you've got at the moment?
I think that's always a possibility. When you lead in the field and it's a novel class and you start producing data, then that's clearly something which may happen. But I think at the minute, what we're really focused on, delivering the data from the trials, from the oncology trials, from the COVID trials, and from the asthma trials, and really proving out the concepts that we've got and really building the value of the business.
Let me just quickly pick up on one other aspect. We've got a number of clients that are very much into 4D stock. There was some questions a couple of weeks ago pitched in. I know there's been some developments in this area, but the Neil Woodford interest in 4D Pharma, I know has shifted right the way through Link and Acacia Research and so forth. My understanding is now you've taken all of that part of the interest in the company now into within 4D. Is that correct? Is there no other stock overhang in any other interested party in that area anymore?
The Woodford overhang's been something we've been dealing with for a protracted period of time, for a long period of time. And then when it was shifted to Link, we'd obviously had conversations with Link, and it was clear that Link wanted to do some sort of encompassing rapid transaction, which they eventually did with Acacia. We then, once that transaction happened and we saw Acacia selling into the marketplace, what we were able to do was we were able to reach out to some of our investors, sort of say, look, this is happening. It's a chance to get some more stock, which we did. So we completed the purchase of the Acacia stake, not last week, the week before.
Let me just bring up a share price chart just to illustrate what's happening here, if I can, and just talk a little bit about what's been going on this year. Stock was around about 23 pence before we went in. Beg your pardon, the stock was actually all the way up at 100 pence before we went into the COVID crisis. Then, of course, it became evident that you were able to possibly field this potential treatment for COVID. And we saw the stock work all the way up to 81. We're now at 38 pence. What's your message to shareholders on this? And what's your long-term vision and how you anticipate rewarding shareholders for holding the stock?
I think the value that we're generating in the business is huge. You look at what we're doing. If you just pick one of the assets, never mind, we've got a platform where we can develop a whole host of assets, whether it be MS. We're doing some fantastic work in neurodegeneration, which is a program which isn't quite at the clinic yet, but we're close to being in the clinic. So these are billion-dollar marketplaces, and we are the world leader in this field. We have the biggest IP portfolio. We have a great partner in Merck, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. And we're starting to see some great data from the work that we're doing. So, my message to the shareholders is very clear. This company's got a lot of work to do, but the value within the business now is immense. And, I don't think that's fairly reflected in the share price, but, the market set the price. So, my message is, hang on there and let's see what goes on.
Yeah, one of the interesting things I think about biotechnology companies, small pharma businesses, is that the Americans seem to understand the dynamic better than we do over here on this side of the Atlantic. I don't know to what degree you agree with that, but certainly coming out of Boston, Massachusetts, there's a lot of these companies and they're appreciated very early on. In the London market, I don't feel that's the case. Do you have your eyes on a possible prize on a NASDAQ listing, for example, to give that extra exposure that I think perhaps possibly a company like yourselves may need in order to generate the sort of heat and the investor interest in what you're doing to sustain you for the future?
We've been working across in the US for a period of time. We've been working with the pharma companies. We're starting to work with investors. We brought some investors in the last round. That's clearly something which is on the cards for 4D Pharma. We'll continue to work with the banks over there, and we'll see where that takes us. But yeah, I think your point is well made. The US does have a better record of investing in biotech than the UK markets. They have a lot more investors who are specialists over there as well. So they're the people that we'll continue to work with and build a relationship with.
Yeah. One final question. I'd like, if I possibly can, to have you back on this platform later on this year. What are we going to be talking about, let's say in December 2020? What do you hope to have passed under the bridge by that point, which you're aiming for at the moment?
Well, by the time we get to Christmas, we'll be talking about more results out of the cancer trial. It's an open label trial, so we'll be able to continually report to the marketplace on how the patients are doing and how the recruitment's going. Hopefully we'll make great strides in the COVID trial as well. And then we have some data coming out early in the autumn in an IBS trial as well. So there's a lot more to come, a lot more value inflection points, and look forward to speaking to you in December.
Yeah. Okay. Look, Duncan, it's a pleasure. I know you're very, very busy, and I appreciate the time you've taken to spend with us today. But thanks to your efforts in getting together on this interview. That's Duncan Peyton. He's the Chief Executive of 4D Pharma.